Right. Good morning, everyone. And I think the time is it's about 1 minute past 10. Maybe we should give it a few more minutes just to let everybody join us that will be joining us today. But a warm welcome to everybody that is joining us and participating in this webinar with the topic of how energy data drives sustainability in the manufacturing industry. Let's just give it a few more minutes. I see that we have more and more participants joining us. Maybe I can just relate for those of you that have participated in earlier webinars that we've had. We will try a different approach today instead of having different presentations from ourselves or industry experts. We have decided to have a session where we will sort of have like a panel debate. So we have invited some industry experts from the market, different size of companies, from large companies to smaller companies, and I will try to host this. I think maybe one more minute and then we'll kick it off. I see that we have participants, of course, not only from Sweden today, but stretching to the UK, stretching to Norway. I think there was somebody from Finland also joining us, which is very, very happy with that. I hope it will bring you value. Right. I suggest then that we kick this webinar off. It's 2 minutes past 10. I see that a lot of you has had the ability to join. I'm very glad to welcome you all to this webinar. My name is Daniel Wigren. I'm working as the sales and marketing director for the company called Virtual Manufacturing, and it's a great pleasure to host this event today, where we will be discussing the topic of how energy data can drive sustainability in the manufacturing industry. And I assume, since there are quite a few participators joining us, that this is becoming a topic that is more and more interesting for everyone that is working within the manufacturing industry. As I mentioned before, we have a different approach today. In other words, we have invited friends, colleagues, partners, customers, whatever we want to call them, to a sort of a panel debate, and we've prepared some questions. And the key thing here is hopefully we'll get some kind of a dialogue going. If you do have questions that you would like to ask the panel, please post them in the chat, and we will summarize them at the end of the webinar and have a little Q&A session. But once again, I'm very happy to have this panel of industry experts joining us. And let me start by just introducing some of the panels that we have, or some of the people that we have in the panel today that will be sharing some insights on this wonderful topic. First of all, we have Mr. Robert Wester, who is working for the AB Volvo Group as a manufacturing technology manager. So Robert works globally to align production strategies across all the Volvo powertrain factories, ensuring consistency, efficiency, and future readiness. So he's all about trying to scale best practices across different kinds of borders in the world towards different sites. Thank you, Robert. Maybe you can just say hi to the crowd.
Hello, everyone.
Some wonderful trucks that you have in the background there.
Yeah, isn't it? It?
And then we have Mr. Peter Strömberg, who's the CEO for Wallåkra Mekaniska. Peter, if you just say hi there, wonderful.
Hi.
So Peter is a CNC expert and a longtime leader at Wallåkra, where he's worked for almost 19 years. So under his leadership, the company has now installed sort of energy sensors in 8 different CNC machines, giving them a real-time view of how the actual energy consumption on the shop floor. And we will discuss that a bit more further on. We also have Fredrik Svensson joining us. Fredrik, maybe you can just say hi to, wonderful. There we have Fredrik. Corporate Development Manager at Sandvik Manufacturing Solutions, has spent the last 16 years helping customers succeed in digital manufacturing. At Sandvik, he focuses on business development and finding smarter ways to work through technology and collaboration with different customers and partners. And then we have Jenny Hörnlund. Jenny,
Hello.
Wonderful. Head of sustainable manufacturing at Sandvik. So Jenny leads the sustainability agenda within Sandvik Manufacturing Solutions. She's a trained engineer, but her heart is in business development. And for the past 8 years at Sandvik, she's been driving change. For the last 3 years, she's had full focus on making sustainability a strategic pillar. So these are this is the panel that we have with us today. Conversation is the focus today. I will try to ask some questions. Hopefully we'll get some very good answers. No slides. Let's keep it practical. Let's keep it simple. As mentioned before, if you do have questions, please post them in the chat, and we will pick them up and look at them and have a sort of a Q&A session at the end of the webinar. Right. Let's try to kick it off then. And I think if we start this by looking at a bit on the regulatory side, we all know that energy and CO2 consumption and CO2 footprint is a topic that is being more and more raised within the manufacturing industry. So I would just like to start off by Jenny Hörnlund at Sandvik. If you could just start off by just briefly describing your role and focus within sustainability at Sandvik. And on the same topic, when it comes to regulations and so on, what sustainability regulations do you currently see as particularly interesting or challenging for the manufacturing industry?
Sure.
Yeah.
So my name is Jenny. As Daniel mentioned, I'm responsible for sustainability within Sandvik Manufacturing Solutions, which is one of 4 business areas within Sandvik. One thing that is unique with us is that we are a pure software business area, so we don't have any factories. So our focus is, I would say, to 100% to provide solutions to help customers with sustainability, I would say. So not so much on the internal side, but very much on the kind of the business providing solutions that helps customers. So that's my role.
Wonderful. And when it comes to regulations that we see that are of course the regulations might differ depending on where in the world we're located, but when it comes to regulations that will somehow affect the manufacturing industry, can you just share some insights on that?
Sure. I think it doesn't really matter if you're located in Europe or if you're located in the US or on Asia. You will be kind of affected by the EU regulations in a case, because you are suppliers to the European Union or you are a customer from the European Union. So it's affecting the whole world, I would say, the regulations. But I would say that there are 2 very important ones coming up, and corporate sustainability reporting, CSRD, is probably something you all heard about. It's been talked about a lot, but that's on the kind of company level to report on your sustainability efforts and footprint and everything you do in sustainability, to be able to compare companies between each other in the European Union. So it's a good, the purpose is really good, but it's a lot of challenges related to it, of course, especially if you're a small and medium-sized business. But you have also like product-related regulations coming up, for example, digital for product footprint, DPP, which is on product level to kind of, everything you do with the product should be traceable throughout the value chain. So you have like an end footprint on the end product, so to say. So that's also something that will affect a lot of companies that are producing components or products in plastics or iron or whatever it is. So yeah, I think those are the really big ones that will affect producing companies in Europe and in the world as well.
Well, wonderful, Jenny. Thank you for that. And coming back then to regulations and sort of the drivers for wanting to, document energy data or start collecting energy data. Robert, if I just ask you a question, I mean, you're working and have worked for a long time within a big global organization, but What inspired you to sort of start working more actively with energy monitoring within the scope that you are in charge of?
Yeah, I mean, as I'm working towards all the factories in powertrain, and I just come up with the word. Maybe I'm a little bit of an influencer when it comes to different things, and I think this is actually one of these areas. I mean, Volvo is big, as you say, and it's, of course, they have a lot of strategic or different strategic directions, and one of them, of course, is to meet the Paris Agreement, just to mention one. So the factories have different KPIs to meet this Paris Agreement, and how then they do that, it is to focus on the CO2 footprint and impact, and how to improve that. Of course, one way is to measure the power consumption. So I think that's a little bit from a bigger perspective or broad perspective why I started to try to influence the factories by looking at the power consumption.
Well, wonderful, thank you. Just coming back to some of the initial discussions we've had a long time ago, Robert. I know you mentioned back then that of course, you know, depending on what you're working with, you have different shops. You know, you might have a foundry, you might have an assembly shop, you might have a machining shop, and so on. And typically some shops consume more energy. And correct me if I'm wrong, Robert, but I think you mentioned a year ago that you were a bit sick and tired of the fact that just because you have a foundry shop, all the energy focus, all the, you know, power consumption focus is always on the foundry. In other words, when it comes to machining or assembly or paint shop, you haven't really, you know, raised the level when it comes to discussions around energy consumption.
Yeah, you're right.
Correct?
No, but you're absolutely correct, and I think that's how it started. I mean, when they got these sort of say directions or strategic directions, the only way for the factories to start is to look on let's call it factory level, or yeah. And if I'm looking at one of the factories, which is in Skövde in Sweden, where they have both foundry, machining, and assembly. Of course, the bar showing how much power consumption per factory that they consume, then the foundry is the biggest, of course, and then comes the machining, and the assembly is a very, very small bar. So a lot of focus was on the foundry for sure. So yeah, you're right. I wanted to a little bit turn it around. So also the organization working closer to the assembly could start think a little bit and how can we, with our means, contribute to the CO2 as well.
Wonderful. And I think those were the words from a big global company. Thank you, Robert, for that. Now just coming back on the topic of regulations and so on, and if I ask you, Peter, from Wallåkra, maybe it wasn't because of regulations that you were interested to actually start monitoring energy consumption, or maybe you could just tell us a bit how you started monitoring and why you started monitoring energy at Wallåkra.
The idea started with us getting a software from Sandvik called Vericat Optimizer, where we were able to optimize our CNC programs. And we wanted to measure what kind of impact it's had on the total amount of energy our machines consumed. So that's the way it started. Mm-hmm. But it has, of course, a lot of extra benefits now when we're up and running, like finding out that some machines had a higher standby consumption than other machines, and maybe early on figure out if there is something wrong with a machine. Also, even if we're a small business, the authorities visits us as well and want to know that we make informed and wise choices in regards to sustainability. So this is a tool for that, to actually measure and know if our actions make any difference.
Wonderful, and I think a lot of it comes back to the fact that if we cannot actually visualize data, we can't do anything about it. Correct me if I'm wrong, Peter. I mean, by actually seeing the energy consumption on a minute basis, or half an hour basis, or day basis, or week basis, and connecting it to a specific, asset, whether it be a machine or a foundry, or I mean, that's when we can actually start doing something about it, right?
Yeah. Without the data, we're just guessing.
Wonderful. Fredrik, if I just ask a question to you out of a business development perspective, what value do you see in projects like this, working with customers, both small and large, when it comes to monitoring energy data?
The value for the customers, you mean, or the value in general? So
I would say, both perspectives.
Yeah. When we look into that now, I've been involved with installation we've done at Wallåkra, and a reflection first is to we know sometimes it could be very tricky to connect to machines and get data out of machine. That there are so many ways that we can do that, and that is very often prevent companies from starting to do something, because it can be costly and a bit time consuming to do that. So that was one thing that I liked, that we started very, very simple here. So we just attached those sensors on the machine, and we were able to equip Peter's shop. Actually, I think it took 2 hours, actually, something like that. Then we were able to get data from all the machines, and I think that is a good example of a good way to start, because you don't have to start with the big bang, and by just doing this, we are now able to, or Peter's able to get some basic information out, so he can see new things and take new types of decision based on data. And I think here comes the value for the customer when you are starting to help them to see new things, I would say. And
so
then
it's not bringing value to day-to-day operations somehow, no?
Yes. And then from a general perspective, or like a sustainability perspective, I think there is a lot to do out there, because we tend to be good. We sort papers. We do great things when it comes to that. But when having machine that consumes so much energy, and we don't care about it, that becomes quite obvious when we see how much energy those machines actually consumed, instead of changing lamps in a few rooms to LED lamps, as an example. That, okay, it's a positive effect, but you can also start to do simple things with the big energy consumers you have in your manufacturing area.
Yeah. Wonderful, Freddie. Thank you for those insights. If we just come back to Jenny a bit, on the topic of sustainability reporting, and this irrelevant if you're a big company or a small company, but how does energy data specifically tie into sustainability reporting?
Well, it's simple. In the sustainability reporting, that's something that you should report on.
Yeah.
Your energy consumption, of course, but not. I would say, I mean, you can read the electricity bill and you can report on that number, or you can be more granular and kind of also talk about the actions that you do, because you always report on. You're required to have a narrative on your actions as well, and describe what you are doing. So that's where I think it really makes sense. And adding to what Fredrik is saying, do you take the right actions? Do you focus on the right things? And that's describing that is where I think it's super important to be more granular when it comes to energy or reporting your energy. Like we have actually installed sensors, we know what's going on, and we have chosen to focus on these parts, etc. So the whole kind of reporting and talking about the actions and why you are doing things, that I think that's where it really makes sense to be more granular than only like, yeah, this is my energy consumption, this is a number on my bill, so I'm reporting that, but actually describing more what you are doing and why.
Yeah. And let's also remember the fact that irrelevant on how you're measuring energy consumption, if you're taking a figure off the energy bill, or if you're like Peter, looking into the details of each machine. I mean, it's only data that is being collected, right? So I mean, we can collect data, we can collect huge amounts of data, store them in the cloud. I mean, that's not a problem anymore in the modern technology that we're living, but it still requires action from us, from people, yeah. In order to improve, we need to look at the data, we need to be able to analyze it, and then take some kind of actions on what should we do to improve, or what should we do to decrease the energy consumption. But if we don't see the facts, it's difficult to actually take actions, right?
Exactly. And it's part of the reporting. You need to describe that part as well. How do you intend to decrease your energy consumption? Yeah. So you're writing about that as well in the reporting.
So just coming back to Robert, if we come back to the Volvo Group, Robert, when you took the decision to actually do something, I mean, there was, of course, maybe you had to what's the word I'm looking for? You had to convince some people maybe internally in the organization, but once that was done, there was some kind of an initial phase. And what did that initial phase look like? And what type of challenges did you face within the organization during the initial phase?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, exactly. A little bit. Also coming back to what I said. I mean, the first step for if you take Skövde as an example again, the factory order, they started to look at the total consumption for foundry, machining, and assembly. But as you're a little bit describing, all of you, if you just look on that level, what can you do? You cannot start any activities or such. So you have to break it down to process step, equipment level, to be able to understand and initiate any activities. So I think that's where we also ended up, and we pinpointed actually one pilot area in machining, on the gear machining, where we have some kind of little bit of an end-to-end process, we can say. We put in, simply described, you put in material in one end, and the other end it comes out a gear, which is machined. So it was, I think, 9 equipments that we added sensors on. So by this we can also see some kind of end-to-end figure, but look on individual machines. Because we have a lot of machines, as you may understand, and many of them are still quite old. So we don't have the benefit of looking at already installed sensors from the supplier. So this was a real opportunity in a simple way to apply these sensors and start to collecting data. And I mean, we can use the data to so much. When we started this pilot, I didn't know exactly, okay, where will we end with this? But I see that we can actually launch a lot of different activities, but in different organizations based on the data. Just bringing up an example, we can, within manufacturing engineering, we can use the data to start think of when we have new installations, instead of only looking at cycle times and cost, and that's such of parameter. We can also add power consumption. So when they are in the front of buying a new equipment, they can compare, okay, how much power consumption does this equipment take compared to another. And then when it comes to the data, also production, I think, I don't know if that was you, Fredrik, who mentioned that that as you see the data over time, you can very easily use the data to plan your production, because sometimes when you believe that it should be 0, maybe let's say on the night, in the nighttime, if you don't have a night shift, it should be 0, but it isn't. So you have to figure out why isn't it like that. And also due to that, we have some restrictions in the net, in the power net, and you know, we have the peak in the morning when everything's starting up. So they can also replan also the production based on this to lower the peaks a little bit, so to say.
Mm-hmm.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Robert, but I know that the Volvo Group is working very close with a lot of leading universities and colleges around the world. But is it not true that even the universities have now shown interest in this type of data and actually doing some research and maybe doing some analytics on it to see, you know, what by collecting this amount of data or this type of data, what can we do to further, you know, develop the research areas?
Absolutely. As I was a little bit saying, maybe I'm a little bit of an influencer when it comes to this. So a lot of people have been contacting me. I didn't have, if I start internally in Volvo, I didn't have to push out this information that hard because it was spread quite quickly through the organization. So I started to get some calls and mails. How this is working, how do you collect the data? Can you show us a little bit how it works and so on? And also from the universities. So yes, a couple of universities have been contacting me, and they will want to use the data for different purposes. Some purposes just to train students of how to use data and how to compare different data, and also from power consumption or CO2 perspective also. How can we use the data to lower that? So yes.
Wonderful.
Daniel, can I just ask Robert a question? Because I reflect a bit. It's interesting because Robert has a global perspective. Yeah, that's interesting. And me and Jenny we have had a lot of discussion with our own companies that we have in our portfolio, and they are located on different places in the world. Some of them are US based, some of them are Europe based, and we have seen different maturity and different types of mindset depending on where you are located in the world around the topic sustainability and how to take it serious, etc. Have you seen similar variations in different countries, so to say, around the interest?
For sure. I mean, as you're saying, we have so many different cultures between the countries, and when it comes to, how should I put it? When it comes to sustainability in general, yes, we have different views, and we have different maturity in that. So if I pick Sweden as an example, we are very far in the front compared to let's say US or other countries. So yeah. It is like
I would
that.
say we have the similar experience that Sweden are very matured, so to say, and we take this topic more seriously, and there is a maturity journey in some countries still.
Yes.
But I don't know what you said, Jenny, but it feels like it's starting to come there as well in some of those countries that has been a bit passive, so to say, on the topic.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it will be different lead times for different countries. So Sweden, maybe they are a little bit more active compared to others. They want to understand, okay, is this really a focused area? And then the big guy in the top, Volvo AB, says that yes, we should focus on that. Then I start to think, okay, maybe I have to do something. So yeah, different maturity lead times. Yes.
Yeah.
So maybe, Robert, we need to find more US-based influencers. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So just coming back to the SME market, you know, the small and medium-sized companies, and Peter at Wallåkra there. I mean, what surprised you the most when you first started reviewing the energy data that you were collecting from your CNC machines? And a follow-up question on that, you know, how has this data changed your day-to-day operations or decision making or even communication with the shop floor, with operators and so on?
We're still very new to this, so we haven't had access for so long time. So we haven't really done very much actions. But as soon as we plugged it in, we realized that we had really high standby energy on one machine, and that leads to us suspecting that we had a problem with it. So we're gonna look deeper into it, but for now we just keep it closed when it's not used. It's a small thing, but it adds up. And as you use it and as time goes, you come up with new ideas for how to use this energy monitoring.
And is this something that have you seen a sort of change in mindset from your organization or your employees or your colleagues, or are there more people that are asking about sustainability, or that are more, you know, anything on that topic?
As a small company, not very much, but we had discussed it a little bit, and we looked at it together in a meeting. But so far, no.
Yeah.
We haven't gotten so far with it. But we made another interesting observation. We got an emergency order for some small aluminum pieces. So they needed quite a lot of pieces really fast. So we ran it in 2 machines. Took one small machine that's meant for aluminum work, and we took a bigger machine to run the parts simultaneously. And running the same parts in a bigger machine, it almost took twice the amount of energy. Yes, the table is bigger, the spindle is bigger, everything consumes more energy on the big one. And then you should also calculate that the little machine is faster. It makes more pieces in less energy. And that was way more substantial than I would have guessed. So you get these insights, and later on you're able to base your next machine purchase on those insights.
So you're actually learning more about the future investments and so on. And I think you mentioned the, you know, twice energy consumption a bigger machine, or higher energy consumption at the end. And I think at the end of the day, I mean, when you actually know how much energy you're consuming, if you can actually connect that to some kind of energy cost, I mean, you can actually start talking cost in a pretty early phase also when you're making new investments. Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you, Peter. Jenny, just coming back to you, what do you think will be the biggest mistake companies make if they don't take action? I'm going to say now, but maybe not now, but you know, sometime in the near future. I mean, what are potential mistakes that they can make?
That's a good question. I mean, this is. Are you referring more to like the regulation part, or more in general?
I think we can see it as an open question. I mean, of course, out of a regulations perspective, I think especially irrelevant if you're a large global organization or if you're a small company. I mean, you will have regulations that you have to follow, and if you don't follow them, you know, you will be, I'm not going to say punished, but maybe somehow you will be punished.
Yeah.
So maybe a bit out of that perspective, sure.
Yeah, I think that will be pretty expensive if you don't start to think about it now. Both on the kind of a sustainability reporting, which is coming very, very soon, but also on the kind of the understanding the carbon footprint in production for a product, which is also coming. So you have to start be aware that this is actually coming. It's going to be a regulation, so you have to start looking into it right now. But I think more in general, I think as Peter and Robert mentioned here, if you have energy monitoring right now, or you install it right now, over time you can take so many good, you have so many good insights. So there's like, I don't see, the earlier you do it now, then you can take good decisions, good actions from now on, moving forward. I mean, the more data you have, the better decisions you can take when it comes to planning your production, or when it comes to, like Robert, you said, or Peter, about the investments, really. So, I mean, there are really, really good decisions you can make moving forward just by having this insights and the data.
So is it correct?
I have another reflection. Yeah. I have another reflection, Daniel, on that, because we have other partner companies or customers that we have spent a lot of time with, and when they are SME companies, small machine shops, you can say, that supply parts to companies like Volvo and the big guys, and it's very clear that the purchase department starts to put quite tough requirements on those sub-suppliers to be able to measure the CO2 footprint and being able to have control of that part of their operation. And in many cases, it has been a must to have it to be able to win the deal. So competitive companies that had bad control of it, they have been disqualified to be able to win that deal. So there it starts to be very important to take control over this topic.
So in some cases, it could even come down to like making or breaking a specific deal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And would it be correct to say, Jenny, that maybe, of course, there are regulations coming from the EU or depending on where you're living, but from your answer before, would it be correct to say that yes, of course, you should focus on regulations, but maybe there are other values that are so much more, that are so much bigger, that you can receive as a company or as an organization by actually monitoring energy data, that regulations, yes, they will come, but I think the message is start now, because there's so much value to it.
Yeah, exactly. It's there are really business benefits related to it, of course. More than that, of course you should be compliant, of course we have to do this, etc. But there are, from a business perspective, both for the small and large companies, I think it's super good.
Yeah, great.
And I mean, we have other drivers as well. I mean, as we were talking about, this can actually reduce your cost. So it depending on where you have your facilities and such. But I think in general, the energy provider many times talk to different companies saying that depending on how much you take out from the grid, so to say, that you have to work with this, because still we have these peaks in the morning. It doesn't matter where you're located in Sweden or so. We have the peaks and we have to work with them. So that could be another driver to understand that.
Yeah, wonderful. So just Fredrik, a question to you out of a business perspective. Then, what do you think are the biggest challenges for companies? Irrelevant if they're global or local or small or big. Challenges that companies face when actually starting with some kind of a energy monitoring program or initiative. I mean, is it about finding the influencers like Robert said before, or like the passionate people like Peter that wants to find, see, or what are the challenges, do you think?
There need to be, it's the same when it comes to doing new things. The company needs to have a person or several person that likes the topic and want to do something around the topic. That is one thing. And then it helps to have like a digital mindset or think like data is the base for being able to take good decisions. If you have that, then it will be more natural for you to take step like this. If you are a bit old school and you don't think like that, then it will take longer time for you to do something, and then you will probably lagging behind, not only in this domain, in the whole digitalization journey. I think that's a challenge. And then I think also it's not so easy to choose supplier because there are so many different types of solutions out there. There are simple small solution that is quick to install, but you can also implement more complex competent solution, and I guess it's not so easy to choose what to start with. But my recommendation so far, spending time with a lot of customers out there, is to start with something simple and do something. And then, because when you do something, you learn so much on the journey, and that is not only on this topic. It's in most of the new topic that you dip your toes in.
So it's a lot about finding the enthusiasts within the organization.
Yeah. And also work with good people. So if you find suppliers that you click with, I think that is also important.
Wonderful. So Robert, just coming back for some final questions here when it comes to the Volvo Group, the initiatives that you have kickstarted here, how have they been received within Volvo? You mentioned you've received a lot of questions, emails, and so on, but are there any? Yeah, I mean, how does the rest of the organization see it? And on the same topic, I mean, can you see any concrete effects of changes in your operations so far?
Yeah, as I chose, as I said, this gear machining, that was maybe not based on that we had the problem there or that it was raised or questioned from the factory. It was more me just pinpointing, okay, let's take something or a process that we believe we can get good data from. So we have not fully started activities within that process area. But as I said, we have influenced other part of the organization. So right now we are installing, for example, in the paint shop for engines, where they already have seen that they have to reduce the power consumption, and they believe they can optimize. Let me think now, the heating system, because after you paint, the diesel engine has to pass through a tunnel where it's heated up to be able to dry the paint. And that is on all the time. It doesn't matter if it's a diesel engine within the tunnel or not. So that was one way for them to start use the data. They have just installed it, so they have not done that much yet. But then they can optimize the PLCs in that process to lower the power consumption when it's not any diesel engine in the tunnel, so to say. And I got also other areas that is coming up. So I started to get a list of 2-3 areas more where they see the need, as I said, to measure on equipment level, because that's the only way to understand and start activities. It's not enough to measure on factory level or department level. You have to go down to these equipment levels, so to say. So
the bottom up approach, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think that's the only way.
Yeah. I think in all types of organizations, we have colleagues that have they have a lot of experience, whether it be in production technology and so on, and have seen many different environments and so on. But I like the fact, I think when you come back to this gear machine cell that we were talking about before, Robert, that there were some people involved, and when we actually started getting some figures out on energy consumption and we connected them to cost, these very experienced people, production technology, and so on and so on. They were almost blown away, or they said, "Wow, we had no idea that the cost was this high."
Oh.
And then, of course, we can ask ourselves the question: okay, so why did we not have an idea of that? But I think things like actually seeing cost is a way to actually be able to change it, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And reducing it somehow.
That's something we understand. We are not only working with it cost within our business, we do it in privacy as well. So,
Yeah, for sure.
We understand that figure, so it's easier to rely on. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Robert. Let's try to summarize a bit here before we open up the floor to some questions. I think Kimberly, we have some questions that have come in, but last question to Fredrik then. What would be your advice to companies that are considering doing something?
Around energy. Yeah. As I mentioned before, start with something simple. Do something, and then start to look into the data. That's the first thing, and then new. I think Robert has mentioned that several times, and also Peter. Then new use cases will come. So I will not hesitate, because it's quite cheap to start to do something, and those small money that you can invest, you will have them back quite quick if you just are able to create a small initiatives and act on the things that you see on the real data. That's the easy thing. Start.
And I think also maybe the importance of finding the people that want to do something, whether we call them influencers or whether we call them enthusiasts or
Exact.
Yeah.
Exact.
Peter, final question to you. I mean, if you had the chance to look back you've been with Wallåkra for 19 years, and it's only the last half a year or so there where you've started monitoring data. But if you had a chance to time travel and you could actually move back 10 years and you were able to have this type of monitoring 10 years ago, what do you think would have been different then, or based on decisions that you've made, or in investments that you've made, or?
It's hard to say. Being able to send back information is something we all would dream about doing. But yeah, of course, I would have longer experience working with it. I would have learned more lessons, and maybe done some different investments. But yeah, it's a hard question to answer.
Yeah, no, I think that's perfect.
Yeah.
Jenny, final question. How can companies begin to proactively integrate energy into their sustainability strategies?
No, I think it adds on to what Fredrik was saying as well. I mean, there is not. I mean, it's when you start getting the insights, that's when you can take actions, and your sustainability strategy is all about taking what actions do you take to improve. And if you have the right insight, and if you have the right data, then you can make, then you can have the focus, and then you focus on the right things and the right initiatives. So that is like, getting insights so you can actually build your strategy and your plan. So that's what I would say about it, I think.
Wonderful. I think that's a very good summary. Right. Let me just look at a bit in the chat here. I see that we do have some questions that have come in. I know there's a question here from Mr. Christian Lundeflo at the Technical College here in Gothenburg. He asks, Peter, how would you like to implement the energy consumption in your production planning? That's a tough one, huh?
Yeah, that's a tough one, especially since we work like 50% of what we do is prototype machining. So it's kind of hard to plan. It's not very easy to run lights out. But I have been thinking about it. You could example, use our electric consumption to make a decision whether we should have a hourly rate on our electric or we should have a fixed rate. That's something you use it for. You could use it to calculate the benefits of having a second shifts in that perspective. Besides that, I don't have any other tools the way I see it. We work in very short lead times and in prototyping, so we're a bit tied up.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good answer. Robert, a question for you is coming back a bit to help me out here now, Robert. But how many powertrain sites does Volvo have around the world?
That are, so to say, within AB Volvo operations, it's 4. We have them in Sweden, France, US, and Brazil. Yep. And then we have a couple of joint ventures as well that we collaborate with.
So the question comes in here that if you look in a global company, assume that you find or that you have gained benefit or value or findings from the work that's been done in Skövde in Sweden. How long do you think it will take before you can find the same savings in Brazil or France or even the US?
Yeah, as we were talking about before, some countries or factories need a little bit more lead time to understand and mature in the question. So, but I think if you're stated in Europe, then you're more or less on the same page, I would say. Maybe some countries are a little bit behind, but in Europe we are more or less synchronized, I think.
Yeah. Wonderful. And then another question has come up here. Have any of you found a correlation between energy consumption and machine breakdown? In other words, being able to predict major breakdowns, so sort of like predictive maintenance based on energy consumption, or?
I can touch on that. We have other tools in our portfolio actually that is measuring very, very detailed, and there you can see. I'm not sure if energy is a part of it or if it's the force on the tools or spindle or something like that. But I think you can include energy in that type of data collections as well. So if you are measuring very, very often, then you will absolutely see that the force will increase and there will also be an energy change when the force increase on the spindle or on the tool. So in that perspective, that will be possible. But then you need to measure very, very often to be able to catch that situation.
Yeah. And I think with the technology that is out there today, I think it's definitely doable. So good. Thank you, Fredrik. Right, I think that sort of summarizes the questions that we've had. Just to sort of summarize the day, it's been a wonderful discussion. Thank you so much, Fredrik, Jenny, Peter, Robert, for participating. And I know that there's a crowd out there stretching from Sweden to Finland to the UK to other parts of Europe. If you do have further questions or want to dig deeper into some of the details, please do not hesitate to reach out to. I haven't asked this before, but I hope it's okay, Robert, Peter, Jenny, Fredrik, if there are questions from the crowd here, if they can reach out.
Yes, sure.
Of course. Absolutely.
This whole session has been recorded, so we will post the recording also if there is anything that you've missed or you want to go into further details. With that said, I just want to say thank you to the whole panel. Thank you to the crowd that has joined us. I hope that it was valuable. We will, of course, come back within another month or two with another topic on a webinar. Please join us then. But with no further ado, thank you very much. Have a wonderful day, and let's do what we can to focus on sustainability and energy monitoring. Yeah.
Yep. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks a lot, Daniel, for having us.
Thank you very much.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.